The NHL tweeted out their best guess for the Nashville Predators starting lineup. But did they get it right?
You're Locked On Predators, your daily podcast on the Nashville Predators, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Happy Friday, everybody. Welcome to the Locked On Predators podcast. Thanks for making us your first listen of the day. We are, of course, a part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Want to kick off this fabulous Friday episode, shouting out our Locked On Predators insiders and our everydayers who tune in to talk Nashville Predators hockey with us. I'm Ann Kimmel. I'm a writer and co-host with Penalty Box Radio and Friends. I have a partner in crime.
You do. I'm Emma Lingan, and I'm an NHL reporter and host with the Hockey News.
Well, the NHL social media team tweeted out their projected lineup for the Nashville Predators, and boy, did they get some responses to that across the board. On today's show, we're going to break down their take on Nashville's starting roster. We're going to tell you what we think they may have gotten wrong, and we are also going to have conversations of a glass half full, glass half empty vibe when it comes to this Nashville team. Before we dive into all of that, do want to let you know this episode is brought to you by Monarch Money. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNHL at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. All right, Emma, I've seen many tweet cause a ruckus and a brouhaha with the Nashville Predators fan base and the NHL fan base at large. And look, here's what's real. You can't believe everything you read on the internet. You certainly can't believe everything you see tweeted out on Twitter, X, whatever you call that. But the NHL social media team, they're going through and they're releasing their projected lineups for the NHL teams. And when Nashville's tweet launched, there was a response. Like from Preds fans, from hockey fans, and here's the one thing that I want to say, and I don't want this to come across, with any sort of like weird arrogance to it or anything, but things of note when you see a national take on the Nashville Predators, especially right now. There is so much nuance to what happened last season in Nashville. Now, none of that nuance changes the record of the Nashville Predators and the 84-year-long season that we witnessed. But there was so much nuance to what happened with the Predators that I think you almost have to be immersed here in the conversations, in the media scrums, in the practices, in the locker room to pick up on some of what went wrong. And so I think that, national takes may not understand or have the time to elaborate on all of that kind of stuff like we do as, people who cover a team more exclusively. And also, I just want to say that I don't know that national takes have consistent eyes on each individual team's prospects like we probably do, because we're watching the Milwaukee Admirals and we're seeing dev camp and we're seeing rookie camp and training camp and all that kind of stuff. So just framing this up as I think this is a really great springboard for conversation for the Nashville Predators lineup, but I don't know that they got it 100% right, Emma.
No, I don't know that they did either. But again, to your point, I feel like there's so much nuance that it's like, who's to say? Who's to
Their
say?
best guess may be as good as ours.
Yeah. I don't know. I think there was one, because we've talked about this before about there are, for the most part, we kind of know that there aren't a ton of roster spots that are up for grabs here, with the Predators. It's not like there's going to be a ton of roster battles, but there might be some. The fact that they have 87 defensemen on the left side, might cause some interesting situations there. But I think more or less we kind of know. But for the very few positions where we aren't 100% sure, I thought the choices that they went with were interesting.
Interesting. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And maybe not the most, again, I don't mean like you, don't mean to sound arrogant or anything, but I would just say maybe the not the most informed choices, which is understandable from a national point of view. Like if you're not in this all the time and you're just doing basic research
Mhm.
based on, kind of the facts, I understand how you would arrive at some of these conclusions. But again, to your point, there's a lot more nuance, 84 years worth of
Oof.
nuance that you need to, kind of sort through to get to the end there.
Yeah, nuance out the yin yang, friends. That's maybe something that should be in the swag store. Just a t-shirt that says nuance out the yin yang. That was last season.
Yeah.
It was Yep. All right. So let's take a look at what the NHL says is their projected lineup for the Nashville Predators. And we'll kind of break down what we think, yeah, nailed it. Or here's what I think. Top line of Forsberg, Ryan O'Reilly, and Jonathan Marchessault. Then second line, Stamkos, Svechkov, Michael Bunting. Third line, Joachim Kemmel, Eric Halla, Luke Evangelista. Fourth line, Smith, McCarron, Zach LaRue. Looking at the defensive pairings, they have Nick Hague and Roman Yossi. They have Brady Shea and Nick Perbix. And they have Adam Wilsby and Justin Barron as the third defensive pairing. And of course, in net, here's where we just don't even really need to worry about who's going to get it. UC Saros, Eustace Ananen. So we've got the Finns in net. Nailed that down. Let's talk about the thing we don't have to worry about is what's going to happen. So, Emma, when you look at this projected lineup, what is something that jumps out at you right away? Whether you're like, they got that right, or, I don't know about that.
Joachim Kemmel, question mark?
Girl, come on now. Come on now.
I mean, again, this was essentially what I was referring to a minute ago when I was talking about. I understand if you just have general knowledge of the situation and you look at like this is a highly touted prospect. It's a name that we heard a lot, especially back when they drafted him. It was a coup for Nashville to get him. He wasn't supposed to fall as far as he did. And so this is a name that people know, and it's a name that we've heard a lot about. So again, from a national perspective, I understand how you would arrive at that conclusion. However, I just based on his brief appearance in the NHL last year, I do not at all think that he's a sure thing to make the opening night lineup. He might be, but I mean, to just go ahead and full send and be like, "Yep, that's your third line winger." I'm like, "Oh, I don't know about that," because I think even like again, totally different players, different playing styles and whatnot. But I think if you're just looking at NHL readiness, I would put Ozzy Wiesblatt ahead of Joakim Kemmel, like right now. I put him in the NHL right now. Now, does he have the same offensive upside, the same skill set that Kemmel does? No.
No.
And that's why he's not the, the sexy prospect that everyone talks about. And like that's probably not making those national headlines like Kemmel is. And I'm not saying that Kemmel won't ever live up to that expectation, but he sure didn't in his brief time last year. So I just I would say I'm not totally sold on that one being, the one to make the roster on opening night. Now, what I will say, defense, I think they nailed it. I think they nailed it.
Yes.
I think that's exactly what we're gonna see because we've talked about like, oh, is it gonna be, Yossi and Perbix and then put Hague with Shea and then Hague has to play on the other side. Look, they'll probably try everything in training camp, but I think that they signed Hague to that contract to be a top 4 defenseman and to play with Roman Yossi. I think you want Shea on the left side. You've got Perbix there with him. And then I think as far as the 87 different defensemen who could fill that final spot on the third pairing, I think Wilsby is the most obvious choice. The organization's very high on him. They wanted to see more from him. Obviously, he got injured last year and we didn't get to see that, but I still think that he's the he's kind of the shoe-in for that role. Not to say that a Spencer Stastny couldn't come in and just absolutely blow the roof off in training camp and change their minds. I mean, it might happen. You never know. But I think for right now, the defense as they have it is how I would have it as well.
Yeah, I felt really comfortable with their prediction on defense, and I am with you. I feel like that is Adam Wilsby's spot unless he loses it, and I think rightly so. This franchise is so high on Wilsby, and I think the very small sample size that we had of him, I get it. And I think this is a front office and a coaching staff that is very, very hungry to get him back on the ice and to see more from him. So I like that. I really, really hope that we get to see Wilsby get that ice time as well. But there's still, like you mentioned, there are still some younger defensemen that may want to get in the mix. We're going to circle back around to that Joakim Kemmel person there. Coming up, let's talk about why he is at the top of the NHL's list and why he may not be the player at the top of our list. Today's episode is brought to you by our great friends at Monarch Money. Do you ever wish that managing your money just felt easier? With Monarch Money, it can. Whether you are growing your savings or planning for that big purchase, Monarch puts you in the driver's seat. It's like having your own personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money is so much more than just a budgeting app. It is a complete financial command center. You can track all of your accounts, all of your investments, and your spending in one place. So in addition to managing your money, you are also building wealth. Monarch Money is a great tool for a young adult learning to manage their own finances, and it makes financial collaboration so much easier. Partners can stay on the same page with investments, spending, and working towards that financial goal, all without the extra stress. So take control over your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNHL at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONNHL for half off your first year. All right, Emma, you mentioned the Joachim Kemmel jumped out at you. I was like, hey, we do know we saw him 2 times this past season in the NHL. Not necessarily the NHL debut that I'm sure every young player wants to have. It felt a little bit like, not that he isn't ready in a skill set wise, but it almost felt like maybe the moment was the moment didn't sit right for him. And I think that that's okay. Here's what I will say. I don't really take anything away from those 2 games where, he had 0 points, and I don't take anything away from that. It does not detract at all from what I think he is capable of. When it comes to being a long-term NHL player, I don't feel at all uneasy that he is not what, he does not come as advertised. I really believe that Joachim Kemmel is that. I just think people forget how old he is. He just turned 21. He is such a fresh 21-year-old. Like, I don't even think he's got the laminated license yet. Okay. So this is a young player. And I think part of it is what you mentioned, Emma. Like, he comes with so much hype because there was no reason for Nashville to have even thought that they could get him at 17 in the draft. It just was kind of a fluke thing that he was available to them. And so there's always been this buzz about him. And I think rightly so. I think he has a skill set. I think that he has potential. I just don't think, like you said, he's ready. And what's interesting, we were chatting with the insiders about the NHL tweeting this out, and so many of our insiders agree with you, Emma. Ozzy Wiesblatt, what are you doing? Like, Ozzy Wiesblatt is the guy who is, like you said, not glamorous, but in his games appears to be very NHL ready for a role on the 4th line.
Yeah, I think again with Kemmel, it's not to say like, oh God, I never want to see him again, because that was, that was terrible. But I think that it was just like, I think it's rather ambitious to just assume he's going to make the opening night roster. And
Mhm.
not saying we won't see him in the NHL this year. And I would love to see him make the opening night roster if he deserves that spot. But I
Mhm.
think it's awfully bold to assume that that spot is his. Like the way that we just talked about Adam Wilsby on the defense, that is his spot to lose, I think.
Yes.
Not saying he won't lose it. Again, someone could come in and absolutely blow the doors off the place and he may lose it. But I think it's his to lose. I don't think we can say the same about Joachim Kemmel. That forward position is really the one that is like, I don't know that it's anybody's to lose. I mean, it
Yeah.
could be that's the one that's interesting. It could be Kemmel. It could be Wiesblatt. It could be Matthew Wood. Like you
Yeah.
really just don't know. So I think that if it were me, just going based off right now, based off what we know right now, what I would probably do is put LaRue up on that
Come on,
third
girl.
line.
Come
And
on, girl.
then, yeah, so LaRue goes to the third line, and then Wiesblatt is on the fourth line with McCarron and Smith.
Yeah.
That's how I would do it personally.
Yeah. I think it's so interesting because there aren't a lot of open roster spots when it comes to the forwards, like you had mentioned. And so obviously Kimmel is a very high prospect, and I get why they would think that. But you mentioned, Ozzy Wiesblatt, we're talking about being somebody who we think is NHL ready. You mentioned Matthew Wood. You still hear, like, I mean, let's be honest, Barry Trotz is saying, hey, Brady Martin has a chance to make the roster at a training camp. Now, I think it would have to be a knock your socks off training camp for Brady Martin to make the opening night roster. I'm not saying he couldn't do it either, but I do think there is no need for Brady Martin to make the opening night roster. And I think that is something you have to realize. Like, this team is not a Brady Martin third liner away from Stanley Cup contention. This is maybe not the year. The other
Yeah.
player that I think of, if I'm like, okay, you want to try out a young prospect in the NHL right off the bat, in the back of my mind, I think about Reed Schaefer. Now, he is coming off of a very long injury where he just was not able to play at all in Milwaukee. But this is another one that Barry Trotz really would like to get his eyes on at the NHL level. So I think that there are more options of young players that could potentially make the roster. And again, I will not fuss or squawk or kick or scream if it's Joachim Kemmel, if he has the
Yeah.
training camp that shows that he's ready for that, because he could. And I'm with you. We will see him in the NHL this season. I'm not going to lose an ounce of sleep over that. And I think he's going to be great. I
Yeah.
really don't worry about how he was. But I just think that's so interesting they're like, what prospect is going to hit that
Well,
lineup?
I think especially because like we just got through saying, that's really the only forward spot that is up for grabs.
Yeah.
And it's
Yeah.
like to make such a bold claim to be like, yep, it's gonna be that guy. I'm like,
That's the guy. Is
I
it
don't know.
though? Is it though?
It might
There
be.
are
It might
it
be. But I just think again, awfully bold, awfully ambitious to just assume that that spot is his. It
yeah.
might be. It might be
Mhm.
Weisblatt's. It might be Matthew Woods. It might be, like it could be all of any of these guys. We really don't know. Um and again, with that said, that we don't know whose spot it is, Kemmel would not have been number 1 on my list. I understand that the NHL, when
Mhm.
they do this, they have to pick one, right? They
Yeah.
can't go into all the nuance of it. Kemmel would not have been the one that I would have picked.
Yeah.
Just saying. But yeah.
Yeah. Our insiders had another really interesting observation, and this was multiple of them, and I don't disagree. And they're like, NHL is doing Evangelista and LaRue just a touch dirty with this. And this is something, and we've talked about this, and this is something I am watching so closely because I have big feelings about this. Do not pigeonhole and undersell Zach LaRue. I'm begging you. And I am not saying that he has to not be on the fourth line. I'm saying if you're going to put him on the fourth line, let him play some offense. Like,
Yeah.
let him do that. And I do feel like when you look at this roster, there is a spot where Luke Evangelista could play top 6 minutes. And I think there is an argument to be made for give Zach LaRue an opportunity with Eric Halla to play third line minutes and plug in Ozzy Wiesblatt. My fear, you know how I worry, Emma. My fear is that Zach LaRue is going to be pigeonholed into that like irritating grinder, and you are going to miss out on this kid's offensive upside. And I live in fear. These are the things that keep me up at night.
Yeah, I worry about that as well. And that's why now I'm not saying that moving LaRue from the fourth line to the third line is going to completely change the trajectory of his entire career, but
Right. Cup bound.
It's no, but I also do think there's an element of that to it where it's like, okay, don't pigeonhole him, please, in this role, but also just because, and I know I keep going back to this, just because that's where Andrew Brunette constantly played him last year does not mean that's all he's capable of playing. Because if you really want to see what you have in Zach LaRue, if you want to see what his ceiling is, because I would argue that after less than a full season in the NHL, we don't know what his ceiling is yet. If you want to know what the ceiling is, don't put him on the fourth line with Michael McCarron and Cole Smith, because I mean, no disrespect, but those are not the line mates that you pair him with if you want to see his full offensive potential.
Yes.
Michael McCarron and Cole Smith are not skilled puck distributors. And that's fine. That's not what they're supposed to be. They do their jobs exceptionally well, but that's just not. Again, you're not really giving LaRue the chance to show what he can do. Now, of course, all this talk about last year, oh, he led rookies in hits. Well, of course he did. Did you see what line he was on? Like, of course he did.
That's what he did.
That's what they do down there on the McCarron and Smith line. That's their game. That's what they do. And so while it is a very good thing that he can, he has that physical and that edgy side of his game that he can lean into, that he can be versatile. So it's not like, because a lot of players, you take them from the AHL to the NHL and they don't score goals anymore and they just disappear. So like Zach LaRue didn't disappear. He was able to lean harder into that physical side of his game. But like you're saying, I don't want him to lose that offensive edge. Whereas I think it would make total sense. You put LaRue on the third line, give him a little bit more of an elevated role there, and then bring Wiesblatt in to play on the fourth line, because I think that his skill set and his playing style fits very, very well on that fourth line.
Yeah. I absolutely agree with you. And, we'll see what Andrew Brunette does at training camp, but I think we're pretty smart about this. So just throwing it out there. We're going to see what sticks. Coming up, we've talked about depth. We've talked about defense. Dear heavens, we got to talk about the top line. Okay, Emma, I'm just going to say the thing. And this is my fear is going to come out here, because the top line, the NHL predicted Forsberg, Ryan O'Reilly, Jonathan Marchessault. We've talked on this show about like, hey, Ryan O'Reilly, not necessarily the first, the 1C that you dream of. And that was, of course, something mentioned in a lot of the comments. They're like, really, Ryan O'Reilly? And the center depth is a little thin. Yes, we know. 84 years.
We're aware. Thanks.
We're aware. Thanks. Thanks for coming to our TED Talk. But here's the thing, and this freaks me out. Emma, I feel like, and maybe I'm wrong because feelings are like farts, just indicators, not necessarily facts, but I feel like so many successful teams in the NHL, you don't even have to wonder who their top line is. You know who their top line is. And I look at Forsberg, Ryan O'Reilly, Marchessault, and I'm like, sure, but also could be something else, or perhaps another combination. Nashville does not really have a top line. Nashville does not have a top line, Emma. You
No.
don't look like teams that have their top lines. You just know, like, hey, I know this is who. Nashville does not have, after 84 years and 82 games with 2 huge free agent signings. I still can't tell you what the top line for the Nashville Predators is. I can't tell you. I don't know.
Yeah,
Dear
and I
God,
mean,
Emma.
part of that might be by design. It might be a little bit of like, creating that, even though the roster spots aren't up for grabs necessarily in training camp, but like positioning could be. It's like, oh, you want to be on the top line, you come out and you earn it. But I think that at the end of the day, the way that Andrew Brunette deploys his lines, and we saw it even before last 84 years, like in Andrew Brunette's first season, we saw it. How many games did he start the fourth line out there, or
Very
the third
true.
line? Like, you
Yep.
just, I think that sometimes people get so hung up on the numbers of the lines, and not saying it means nothing. Of course it means something, but it's not like the end all be all of everything. Like, if Marchessault is on the first line or the second line, I don't think that's going to make a huge difference. Now, I generally think I agree with you for the most part about, you look at a team, who their top line is.
Mhm.
That, or you're the Florida Panthers, where any of your 4 lines could be the top line. You have
Really?
Brad Marchand on your 4th line. That, but they're the exception to the rule. That's when they have a Stanley Cup. But I think the way I look at it, it's less about knowing who your top line is. It's more about, who your top 6 is. And I think for the most part, again, I don't know if they're thinking the same way that I do, but I'm like, I think you generally know who your top 6 is.
Mhm.
Maybe it's like there's like 1 or 2 players who could maybe fluctuate in and out of that, like Luke Evangelista being one of them. We
Right.
talked about that yesterday for an entire episode, about like, we think he has top 6 potential, but also would not be shocked to see him on the third line. Like, I think that he's one of the ones that could kind of go either way. But for the most part, I mean, again, one of the, I guess, silver linings maybe of having 0 center depth is like, you really don't have a lot of options. It's like, it is Ryan O'Reilly and it is Fedor Svechkov. Like, that's it. Because who else you got? You got Eric Holla and you have Michael McCarron, who are very well suited to stay exactly where they are in the bottom
Yeah.
6. Now, one thing I think is interesting, that I think is good, that the NHL projected Steven Stamkos on the wing. On the wing.
Come
Keep
on.
him there. Keep him
Just
there.
don't even open that. Don't even. I know you
Don't-
have to keep it in your back pocket, but don't.
Yeah, like, act like it's not an option.
Mm-mm.
Act like putting Stamkos at center would be the same thing as like putting Brady Shea at center. Like, it's just not an option. It's not even a thing that you think about. Um, I like I don't want them to even go there
Yeah.
if they don't have to. So I think that's good. You keep Stamkos on the wing. And I think another reason a lot of people maybe sort of gravitated towards that, like, oh, Stamkos, center, good, yes. And that way you can get Evangelista into the top 6, no problem. And it's like, well, but at what cost? Like, I
Right.
think then if you put Stamkos at center, you're limiting him, not opening him up to do his thing that he does so well on the wing, and then that changes things for Evangelista. So anyway, I think the top line, as the NHL projected it, is how I would project it as well, just
Mhm.
based on what we have to work with here. I think but at the same time, I wouldn't be absolutely shocked if Marchessault was on the second line, and,
Mhm.
maybe, and it's Stamkos or Bunting or whoever on the top line, like, would not shock me. But again, top 6 to me is more or less set. And then you have like,
Right.
the Buntings, the Evangelistas, who could maybe, pop in and
Yeah.
out of the top 6, but for the most part, you kind of have your core top 6. up there.
I just wish we had a better sense of chemistry. Like, I wish we could look at this and go, man, oh man, you have absolutely got to play Marchessault with Ryan O'Reilly. Friends, we walked away from 84 years with zero chemistry in the top six by means of saying, I know for sure you will get your best from Steven Stamkos when he plays with blank and blank. We didn't get that. Nope. I don't like that feeling, Emma. I don't like that. I feel very uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And that's, again, we come back to training camp is going to be so important. And what the players have done in the off season is going to be so, so important. Emma, when you look at this projected NHL lineup, tell me, what's your glass half full, glass half empty take? Like, what makes you feel pretty good about it? And what makes you go, oh my gosh, help me, help me.
Well, I'm not going to say the goaltending. That would be cheating.
But
I
valid.
think, I mean, no, what I feel good about. I feel good about the defense being what it is. Like with those combinations, I feel good about. I also feel very good about Fedor Svechkov being the second line center.
I like that.
That is his role. That is his role because you need to start treating that as his role. It's his to lose and not to be like, well, maybe if he's ready. But hey, we always have Eric Halla who can play up there if we need. No, you don't. Stop giving yourself that option. And that's why, like, this is another maybe glass half full thing of someone who's not in the lineup, Colton Sissons. I wonder if maybe not having him there as that safety net, that security blanket might be a good thing because then Andrew Brunette, again, like you take away all of his options and then he's got to play the kid at center on the second line. So it's like, well, maybe that's your glass half full. Glass half empty. The center depth is just horrid. It's just so bad.
Scary. It's so scary.
It's like, so bad.
It's just not great, friends. Yeah. I would agree with you. I look at this, the thing that my glass half empty, my glass half empty is the Zach LaRue thing. I am telling you, that sticks in my craw. I'm keeping my eye on that, y'all. I'll be watching that like a hawk. But the other thing that I feel a little like anxious about is the defense, not in the way that it looks, but you are banking on 2 top 4 defensemen to play above the opportunities that they've had. And I am certainly not saying that they can't do it, but I'm saying we don't have a body of work from which to say Nick Hague with Roman Josi is going to slap. Yeah, we just don't have that body of work yet. And so that's kind of my glass half empty. Glass half full, I mean, like, okay, goaltending. But yeah, I do think there's something to be said for Fedor Svechkov. Like, this is his coming out year. Like, if this was an episode of Bridgerton, he would be presenting to the Queen this season. Like, this is his season. So go Fedor. Yeah. I guess. And again, don't have any other options.
I guess. No, but that's the perfect scenario, I think, to talk about in half full, half empty, because the center depth is horrible, but also opportunity. That creates opportunity. If you're Andrew Brunette, maybe that was the plan. Maybe Barry Trotz said, I am taking your Blanky away. I am taking your Colton Sissons away. You can't. Now you have to go be a big boy and play Fedor Svechkov on the second line. Like, you have to do it. I really hope that Eric Halla doesn't become the new Colton Sissons in the sense of like, oh, well, we have him and he can play center on the second line if we need him to. It's like, no, act like that's not an option.
Just let Svech roll. Just let him roll.
Unless he is injured, which I hope doesn't happen, but unless he is injured and physically unable to play, he should be on that second line every night.
Yeah. Yep. I also think, and I know a lot of people talked about like this looks like what somebody said something about it looks like names of at a retirement home. I was like, okay. But I also think, look, I look at that and my glass half full is look, I know we didn't see it last season, but there are some goal scorers on this roster. And friends, I think we know this is an 84-foot tall if given the opportunity to succeed. So, look, I get why NHL fans weren't like, woo, when the NHL tweeted out this projected roster. Like, I don't think there is a team shaking in their boots. But let's just see what they can do. I don't know. And again, so much is going to depend on what happens in training camp. I think training camp is going to be very important and very interesting, not just for the players, but for Andrew Brunette, who's going to have to make some decisions. And if Emma and I need to come in and do some consulting,
We're available.
We're available. We will BYOB and we will sit down with you and we will tell you what we think.
Yeah.
Or you can just watch our episodes for free on YouTube. Either way, it's fine with us. Yeah. So, we'll wait and see, how right does the NHL get it? How, will this roster change over the course of training camp? We're going to have to wait and see. But, Emma and I, we will be there. We will be keeping our eye. We will be watching. We will be keeping our eye on all of the things. And of course, keeping you informed about what we see with this Nashville Predators team moving forward. Emma, it is Friday. But before we wrap up our weekend, will you let everyone know for one final time this week where they can find you and your work?
You can find me on social media at Emma_Lingan, and you can find my work at the Hockey News.
You can find me on social media at AnnK_Mama on Ice. You can find my work with Penalty Box Radio as well. Friends, that is going to do it for this week's episodes of the Locked On Predators podcast. We thank you so much for making us your first listen of the day. We will be back next week talking even more Nashville Predators hockey. We'll see you then.